Just gonna react to this for a bit. Alright, so this video.
You are looking at the top 10 survivor meta perks in the game right now, and you might be surprised to see some of these perks on the list. So
Also, this data, I got it from Scott, by the way. He got this data from a website called nightlight.gg, and that site is where people willingly put their builds in, like they give data to the website willingly. So this is not like data mined or statistics given to them by BHVR. This is like people telling him what they run. And apparently the most used perk is DH, followed by Windows. And it's so weird to see off the record be behind Resilience, Prove Thyself, and I guess the other perks are pretty common. But off the record being behind Resilience is kind of weird, no? I feel like everyone has off the record nowadays. Like there's no reason not to have this perk. It's way too good. And then Kindred is also pretty weird. Can you guys believe that off the record is only used in 11.79 by 11.79% of the survivors you go against? I don't feel like that's the case. And this data is it's kind of scuffed. It's not real data. Well, it is real data, but it's like people willingly choosing to give this data away. So this is not like very broad.
In this video, we're going to go over these perks, we'll discuss why they're being used as much as they are, we'll compare them to the top 10 survival meta perks prior to
I think Kindred is PogChat, but I think Kindred is okay.
The big meta shift update, which we'll be referring to as the MSU for the rest of the video, and of course whether or not these perks need changed in any way. Also, before you foam out the mouth, we will be doing the same thing with the killer meta perks in the next video. In general, DBD players are way too addicted to meta amphetamines. Lastly, anytime I talk about balance change,
it's not DBD players though. You guys ever played any other competitive game in your lives ever? People just like winning. And if perks are better, like if perks give you a better chance at winning the game, people are just gonna naturally run that. Like I don't think meta is a problem. He's gonna talk about it later. He's gonna be like, yo, I don't like seeing the same 4 perks every game because it gets boring. It's like, does it though? Like the fun part of the game is using those perks, like pulling them off, getting a sick DH off, getting a you know, using the perks. Like maybe off meta perks are fun as well, but like just having a perk that maybe is fun and at the same time can give you a win. That's why people run those perks, you know. So I don't necessarily think that meta is a problem.
changes in DBD, I'm not talking
And there's always going to be meta. Like you can't try run away from meta. Meta is always going to happen. If there even is a possibility that one thing is better than the other thing, chances are people are going to run that better thing, you know.
Inside of a bubble. The game needs a million different changes for
But I don't think that's the case for
both sides. So please keep that in mind. Whataboutism is not helpful when discussing balance. It's pretty much a brick wall. So the number 1 survivor perk in the game is still Deadhard. However, it dropped from a mouth-watering 50% usage rate down to a cheap 30% usage rate. The most obvious thing that sticks out about this is that Live and Sprint Burst are now both in the top 10 survivor meta perks, which prior to the MSU they were not. So essentially the 20% of Deadhard users who were no longer getting value out of the perk swapped it for another exhaustion perk. Not very surprising at all. That said, a lot of you are going to be scratching your head at why so many survivors, almost exclusively in the top MMR bracket, are still using Deadhard. But the answer is pretty simple. They're all cheating. Literally every single Deadhard user is a hacker. I'm kidding. Only a few are. So I'll explain why for real. The perk has an insanely high skill ceiling. If a survivor is a really good looper, they can turn what most players would consider bad or weak loops into nightmare fuel for the killer. All they have to do is run the loop as tight as possible. If they see the killer lunge, they activate Deadhard, boom, they get a free sprint burst. And
I like the way he talks about it, like it's consistent like that. Something else I saw Scott Jen mentioned, and I should have talked about it in my video where I talked about DH, but I didn't think of it. Is that killers only see DH when it doesn't work, or they only see DH when it fails, when it's too early, or no, when it's too early or when it's in time. They never see the dead hards that happen too late, or dead hards that didn't work because of ping. Killers don't see you starting the animation and then dying anyway. Killers never see that. So there's this like negativity bias on top of dead hard that killers think that killers can only see when it actually works or when they successfully bait it off. So they never see when the survivor is actually press the button at the right time and it just doesn't work. And when he talks about survivors turning weak loops into nightmare fuel for the killer, he's talking about it like DH is so consistent that it adds another layer on top of these weak loops. Weak loops are weak loops. Even if the survivor does get a DH off in those loops, you should be respecting the palette anyway. If you're running around a weak loop as killer, you should always try your best to not get stunned by the pallet. So if you're lunging through a pallet to try to get the survivor, that's already a misplay by your part most of the time. So I don't know what he's talking about here. I don't think DH is a consistent enough perk to have this much value given to it by a lot of people, but let's hear him out.
And if the killer tries to bait it out, they'll almost certainly get pallet stun. Put simply, in the right hands against the right killers, it creates lose-lose situations with absolutely no counterplay.
Now, okay, this is one of the opinions I had that changed about DH. I made a video talking about how I think DH is the worst perk in the game. That is mostly a joke, clickbaity title. Though I actually kind of meant it because of how the perk just doesn't work sometimes and it kills you, and there's no other perk in the game that does that kills you off the bat. But DH is a very strong perk. DH can be used in very niche situations where no other perk can like save your life. It's extremely good against ranged killers and any killer that has to hold the power, like Demogorgon, Wesker, Huntress. People say that it's good against Trickster. I don't see how it's good against Trickster, because like it's so hard to time the dead hard on the last possible knife. That's, I don't think it's good against Trickster, but it's good against a lot of killers. But I don't think there's such a thing as a lose-lose situation for the killer at a pallet. The killer can still swing, because when the survivor is dead harding, he cannot drop the pallet. Given that is a very hard thing to pull off as killer, to time your swing perfectly, just as the dead hard ends, is super hard. You know what else is hard? Actually pulling off a DH. If you don't predict the swing. Now I'm not saying that it's equally as hard. I think that hitting someone right, like when they're reaching a pallet or when they're past the pallet and they've already DH'd is super hard. It's also ping reliance. DH is also ping reliance. So like just pulling off the DH anyway is ping reliance. And maybe there is no place in this game for ping reliance stuff because of how latency issues work. So it is kind of weird to have a perk like DH in the game. But there's no such thing as lose-lose scenario for the killer when it comes to DH. That is just a false statement. If people struggle this much with DH, it's probably because they're not knowing how to play against it. Now, I'm not saying that DH is a bad perk again. I take that back. Like, I changed my opinion on DH. I don't think it's a bad perk. But it's definitely not the strongest perk, the strongest exhaustion perk or the strongest perk in the game, like a lot of people say. You can play around DH. It is very, very possible to play around DH, and I even say it's easy. The only time where it's like extremely hard to play against it, and the reason the perk is even like remotely good, is because of pallets and ranged killers. Like DHing at pallets and ranged killers, that is still pretty rough. But just because, based on the fact that latency issues are such a big problem in this game, DH is just not a very good, consistent perk to use and not get frustrated about. Just like the last game I just played.
Waiting it out is literally not a choice in these situations.
It is.
The more survivors start to pick up on this, the more of them will start to switch back to dead hard.
And how many fucking survivors do that anyway? How many survivors you go against? Like, if a survivor is managing to loop a weak tile that tightly and fucking you over this much, chances are they're already super good at the game. And like maybe DH adds another layer on top of it and makes the survivor even stronger. But just play better. Just be a better killer, bro. You know, play around it. I know it's harsh. But like you can't just be expected to win. It is a perk that you choose to bring into the game and it takes a perk slot. You know? It has to give the survivor some value. It has to do something. You know what I mean? Just like the killer gets 4 perks, and killer perks are just so insanely much better than survivor perks. So, I don't know why people have this take. It's like people don't want DH to do anything. It's like DH has to just be useless. People bring it into the trial and die immediately. I don't get that. How does that make any sense? It's a perk. It has to do something, right? Do you guys agree with me? It has to do something.
Also, if you truly believe Dead Hard is a bad perk now, please explain why it's still the most used survivor perk in the game.
I'll explain. I'll explain. Wait. Thank you for the follow, Gukiso. I'll explain. Let me show you why it's the most used perk in the game. Actually, I don't even gotta go here. Here. This is why. If Dead... Wait it out. Wait it out. Whoa! He's cracked! Do you see how fucking fun this is? It's so fun! Situations like these are the reason people play video games. Do you see this? It was a fun thing. I pulled off a fun DH. That's why I use DH. If I wanted to live and win the game, I'd have Lithe. And I'd have a billion distance on it. It's like, bro. That's why people use it. It's a fun perk, and it's also something you have control over. You can choose when you're going to use it. It feels like you're doing something. It brings gameplay to the game, you know? I can't believe people want to have fun playing DVD. Can you imagine that? It's an extremely fun perk. That's why it has so much use. And a lot of the other exhaustion perks they just encourage you to hold W. DH actually encourages you to loop. That's where the fun of playing Survivor is. People don't like just winning. People like looping. People like pulling these kinds of stuff off. This is such a fun... Do you see how hype I was? Wait it out. Wait it out. And like, if I sprint burst from the killer, am I gonna scream like that? I get just as much distance without being so happy and hype and actually having to do something. Like, what is this take? It's like people use it to win? The only reason people use perks is to win?
And also why you even care if it's nerfed again. If it's
no, it's welcome.
Killers have, and you truly believe it's a worthless perk.
How is it the biggest complaint killers have? The only reason it's the biggest complaint killers have is because everyone uses it. Like, you see it a lot. I agree. Yeah, but because it's fun. If you saw 4 sprint bursts every single game, you'd be complaining about sprint bursts because sprint burst is super fucking annoying. Bro, when I see... I mean, I'm a survivor main. When I play killer, I see people DHing. I'm like, yo, this is super counterable. When I see people sprint bursting and lithing away, I'm like, yo, I can't do anything about this shit. It's boring. You know... That's why people use it. It's not the biggest complaint killers have. I mean, it is the biggest complaint killers have, but it's not the biggest problem killers are gonna have if DH is like removed or nerfed to the floor. Killers are gonna be fucking not wanting to play the game with how many sprint bursts they're gonna see. Like, you're never gonna chase anyone. You're never gonna get to have fun.
Then it really shouldn't be something to worry about, right? Now, the new Dead Hard is way more fair than the old Dead Hard, just so we're on the same page.
Yeah, like, but who's arguing against that? You know what I mean? Who's arguing against new DH being less fair than the old one? The old DH just gave you stuff for free. It didn't require any skill. It was just sometimes you weren't gonna make a pallet, but then you did because of the perk. It gave you a lot of distance. It was still worse than sprint burst, but it was extremely frustrating. I agree. So yeah, I like the new DH better because it adds another layer of like mind game to the perk, which is what DBD is all about.
Page. That said, there were also buffs to the new Deadhard that don't get talked about much. The new Deadhard has no angle requirement. The survivor has full range of motion at all times.
What the fuck? I'm not sure I understand this one. I don't think I understand this take. How's this a buff? Not requiring angle? Well, it also doesn't give you distance, so why would you have to angle it? Huh?
The old Deadhard sent survivors straight forward. Also, when behavior was attempting to correct survivors getting hit through dropped pallets, they for whatever reason increased the hitbox size of pallets by about half a meter in both directions, creating vacuum pallets from hell.
What? Okay, I might be missing something here, but what the fuck does this have to do with DH? What's the connection here? How is this a DH buff? Increasing the range at which you can drop a pallet from. Did it happen because of DH? How's this a DH buff? What you're saying is to fix it, make your Deadhard force you to walk forward. No, he's talking about that's like a buff compared to old DH, but it's like saying that water is wetter than fucking rock. Yeah, they're two different things. There's no angle requirements? Yeah, I also don't get distance. What do you mean?
As Survivor even, you may have noticed instances where you're getting sucked to the wrong side of the pallet because the hitbox is so enormous that the game sometimes doesn't even understand what side of the pallet you're closest to.
This does happen.
Tryhard survivors have repurposed this to run out past a pallet but then vacuum back to it for a stun. It's difficult to play around for kills.
Hasn't this been in the game for multiple years? I haven't played DBD for that long, only about like a year and a half. But isn't vacuuming pallets like a mechanic that's in the game that's been in the game for so long? I don't know. I don't know if this happened because of DH. I mean, even if it did, like, what does this have to do with a buff to DH? It's a buff to Survivor just in general. What the fuck?
Killer, it makes Deadhard stronger, and it punishes killers with good connections the most. Sad.
That's true. But that's not the only instance where good ping is a disadvantage in this game. Pretty much anything in this game offers you an advantage if you have high ping. Especially for a killer, because the game works based on the killer's perspective. So if I Deadhard and the killer, swigs because he has 150 ping, his hit is still going to connect before my DH. So, vacuuming pallets has always been, you could always hang on the side of pallets to drop them. In fact, that was always the best way to get a stun from a pallet. Yeah. Now, I don't think vacuuming should be a thing. I'll just say that. I think it's fun, but it creates like some weird scenarios. So vacuuming pallets is I don't think it has to be a mechanic in the game. Like you gotta commit to either dropping the pallet or running away from it. But I don't think that has anything to do with DH. Buffs up on a soapbox. So how are you, chat? What's the vibe? Oh, I'm in my soapbox.
If your opinion is that Deadhard is
why are killers complaining about DH when they have nice and wesker?
Fine now, I do understand, but regardless of what side you play in DBD, Survivor, Killer, or both, playing against the same perks every game is very boring. Plus,
this is the take I was talking about.
Can lead to severe cases of permacrit. So before I say how I would change Deadhard, make sure to watch Balance for Grass Touchers to understand the broader picture on the balance issues in DBD. Alright, so for Deadhard, I would keep it how it is right now. You could attempt to use it over and over again in a match as many times as possible. However, once it actually worked, the killer hits you with it and you sprint burst away. At that point, it would permanently disable for the rest of the trial, sort of like Decisive Strike. The perk is strong enough that...
Oh my god. Bro,
This would not.
Okay, I'm not just gonna laugh at it. I'm gonna argue against it. First of all, if this happened, no one would use DH anymore, and it would create the scenario I was talking about, where everyone would just run 4 sprint bursts. That's what would happen, because the perk would be dog shit. If you bring a perk into the game, you expect to get value from it. DS is a perk that is nowadays is pretty terrible, because you don't get as much distance, and especially if you're playing against strong killers with movement abilities, DS gives you nothing. So I don't even think DS should be a one-time use, because DS is dog water. DH is not a perk like DS. DH takes skill, timing, and latency to pull off, and the sprint burst you get is nothing compared to like being unhooked and the killer downing you, picking you up, and then you stabbing them in the back, stunning them for 5 seconds with the old DS, and then you running away. Especially if you are tunneling a survivor, that means that you probably already are losing the game, and you have to commit to like tunneling someone out the game. If DH just gave you one use, the perk would be probably the worst perk in the game. Most likely the worst perk in the game. I don't think it's comparable to DS or any other perk that just gives you one-time use, because it's an exhaustion perk. And it's also the only exhaustion perk that takes skill to use. And he's also... let's just hear it.
I'm not even sure if it would drastically decrease its usage rates. Again, this is because the survivors that use tryhard right still understand the high level of value it has. This would also encourage...
Yeah, it does reward you quite a bit, but I don't understand the take of like people complaining so much about DH when sprint burst is just better. Yeah, it gives you a lot of value, but that's just because that's how exhaustion perks work. Exhaustion perks give you a lot of value, and DH is the only exhaustion perk that actually requires skill to pull off. So what is this take? I don't know why people say this so much. Yes, it does give you a lot of value, but that's historically what exhaustion perks do. No? It's like, yeah, you can't argue against the fact that it gives you a lot of value. Yes. Also, sprint burst gives you more value. So what's the take here? Like, if you're arguing that exhaustion perk shouldn't be in the game, then okay, you have a take. Alright, it does give you a lot of value. Is that a problem? But I don't see why people complain so much about DH specifically. I mean, I know why. Because it's used a lot, and it's also very noticeable. Way more noticeable than sprint burst. Sprint burst also needs some kind of skill. If not, you end up walking the whole match. Well, okay, fair enough. Also, Sem the bot, why? Thank you for the follow. But 99ing sprint burst, Jisoo, is so much easier than pulling off a DH. It's but I guess sprint burst forces you to not be on gens if you have it 99, because you gotta be consistently running around, and you gotta actually, you know, have the killer chase you if you have sprint burst 99. But there's so many more things you can do with a 99 sprint burst. You can go for unhooks, you can go for saves with a flashlight or something. You can always just, you know, try to get the killer's attention, and if you're chased with a 99 sprint burst, you know that the chase is unwinnable. So hear me out. Doesn't the gen kick meta also give a lot of value? I don't like this. I don't like, you know, talking about one problem by mentioning another problem that the other side has. So I'm not going to do that. But it's clear that killer perks are much... I don't think anyone's going to argue against this. Killer perks are extremely more valuable than survivor perks. And it should be like that, because it's a 4v1. So if we are to compare, like, DH... again, I'm not going to talk deeply about this, but comparing DH to Eruption is like the dumbest thing a human being could possibly do. And I don't know why people are talking about this so much. I'm not going to get into it, but there is no comparison between tryhard and Eruption. Eruption is a oppressive, broken, overtuned, too many things in one perk. DH, whatever. I'm not even going to talk about it.
More
I don't want to get pissed.
Like tryhard with smash hit and tryhard with head on.
Tryhard with sprint burst, you mean? Tryhard with lithe, and then they pull off one DH, and then you're like, oh, the survivor has the, and then he starts fucking sprint bursting. It's gonna be terrible. You're gonna hate it, Choy. You're gonna hate going against force spin burst every game. I promise you.
Lastly, I would make it to where tryhard would not protect you from a hit that would insta-down you. So if you were a tier 3 Myers, it would still down you even if you tryharded. If you get hit with a chainsaw, you cannot just clench your cheeks and get through it. I think
This is pretty fair. I mean, I don't think that if you're slapped by a fucking tier 3 Myers, you should be able to DH it. But then again, that would be even more reason to just run sprint burst. Imagine you get tier 3 as Myers, and then you approach a gen, everyone's healthy, and then they just fucking zoom away. And then your tier 3 timer is ticking down. It's going down, bro. Like, all that time that you have to commit to chasing a survivor, that tier 3 timer is going down. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I guess. Fair enough. Bubba, you can't really DH Bubba's chainsaw. If you DH Bubba's chainsaw, he can just keep following you and kill you anyway. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is okay. I have nothing against DH not protecting you against insta-downs. But again, Choy, you are not gonna like going against forest spin bursts. I'm telling you, bro. I promise you. I know I will not. I know I'll hate it. So don't give people a reason to run sprint bursts. Trust me.
So anytime a survivor gets hit by something that would put them in the dying state from being healthy, it essentially would bypass tryhard if they were injured and tryharded through it.
And he mentions that normal endurance would still protect survivors, and what? Like, I don't get this. Like, I've historically said this before. Historically, I've said this before, but I don't think DH should give you endurance. It should be a separate status effect. It doesn't make you mend after you pulled the DH off. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna argue against the second take. I think it's fine. Maybe let survivors be insta-downed if the killer has an insta-down and DH doesn't protect you. Okay. Again, more reason for me to run sprint burst. But other than that, I mean, I think this would kill DH at the same time. I don't know. Like, the first one is just stupid. The first change he proposed, but the second one is okay.
Really the final form of tryhard in my opinion. Now let's move on to the second most used survivor perk, Windows of Opportunity, which has seen over a 10% rise in usage since the MSU, sitting at 26%.
Yep.
And to be honest, this perk is a bigger problem than any other survivor perk in the game by a mile, in my opinion.
In your opinion. Alright. Let's just hear him out.
Essentially designed to be a training mechanic.
But if it doesn't protect you when you're injured, what's the point of the perk? Oh no, Jisoo, what he means is that, like, if I'm injured and the tier 3 Myers comes up to me and slaps me, DH shouldn't protect me. But if it's just a normal M1, it would still protect me. Like, insta-down abilities shouldn't be protected by DH is what he's saying. Which is fair enough, I guess.
For new players, but it has been repurposed as an autopilot mechanic for sweatlords. Also, make no mistake, I have Windows of Opportunity tattooed on my arse. It is such an amazing perk to run tiles optimally and never run into dead zones. For those who don't know, Windows originally had a 28 meter radius.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it. No problem.
Every time a survivor vaulted or dropped a pallet.
We're having a discussion, guys. You can ask questions. It's completely fine. Don't worry about it. If you guys have any questions about anything I'm talking about, you can ask me.
Yet even back then, the original perk was still really good. It just didn't play the game for you like it does right now.
Okay. It plays the game for you, is your take? I see why people see Windows as a problem, but I think they're misguided. I think the problem is having too many strong tiles connected on most maps. And that's something that PHR is just not going to change, I'm pretty sure. Because they've talked about this in the past, that they like overloading stuff so that even lesser skill less skilled survivors with less skill can still pull off those hype long chases. with strong pallets everywhere. This is something they talked about. Windows is not the problem. Uh, if you're going against a good player, he's still gonna make the pallets. He's still gonna find the pallets. You're still gonna get looped. Windows just makes it. Oh, I don't think it plays the game for you, but it does offer that layer of like turn brain offness, you know? It's like when I have Windows, I can just turn my brain off. I know where the pallets are. I already know how to play the game, you know? Like I don't have to like pay full attention when I'm looping a killer because I've done it so much that it doesn't matter. But that's because I'm already. I don't want to sound egotistical. I hate talking about myself, like saying good things about myself, talking about my skill like I'm so skilled. But I'm already a good survivor. So like having Windows just adds to it. Like I already know where the pallets are, so I can just turn my brain off and I can loop the pallets without worrying too much. But that's because I'm already good at survivor. If you give Windows to a bad player, he's still gonna die. He's still gonna fumble a pallet. He's still gonna pre-drop pallets and waste all the pallets in like 20 seconds. So it's weird. Your take about Windows should be like that maybe maps are the issue. And I can't argue against maps being an issue. So, I don't know. Maps are pretty rough most of the time.
The killer equivalent of windows of opportunity would be like if surveillance activated every time a survivor touched a gen with...
Or Zenshin Tactics, no? Isn't that what Zenshin Tactics does? Why are you bringing up surveillance? The fuck?
Absolutely no other requirement. So anytime the devs are making a perk like Windows that is intended to help new players get into the game,
no, what? Who told you that? Who told you that Windows is a perk that helps new players get into the game? Windows is a much better perk when it's put in like a good server's heads.
Make sure they're not
I don't think it was meant for new players. Maybe it was. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know why I said that. Maybe it was.
Creating a tryhard weapon of mass destruction.
But it's not though. How is it a tryhard weapon of mass destruction? Would you rather a survivor have adrenaline, hope, deadhard, and resilience over like taking one of those out for Windows? Like you're still gonna get looped, bro. If I don't have Windows, I'm still gonna loop the killer for the entire game if he chases me. Yeah, Windows helps a bit, but the problem that you're seeing here is not Windows, it's the fucking map generation and the pallets being connected.
For what I would do to fix Windows is simply revert it back to what it was. It was still a great perk, and survivors could run it with open-handed to get a little bit of extra value for a fair price, but as it is right now, it honestly looks like something you would see on the front page of a website selling hacks for the game. In third place, we have Adrenaline.
I can't see Windows being this problem that people talk about. It's like, I swear, it's a killer player thing, I think, but like, killer players just expect the other side to be bad. It's like they want the other side to play bad. It's simple as that. Like, killers complaining about survivors being able to see if the other survivors are healing or doing a generator, they see that as a problem. It's like, bro, like, just play around the other side having information. Just play better than them. It's like they want the other side to just be bad and that's how they win, instead of them improving. I don't see survivors doing that. I don't see survivors being like, yo, every killer should be 4.4 because I can't loop 4.6 killers. Why? I feel like that's such a killer main thing to do. Like, you shouldn't expect the other side to be bad. You should expect yourself to be better. It's a competitive scenario. You should just play better than the other side. The other side not having information is just it's a hindrance to the other side. Like, what the fuck is this?
Which has gone from about a 12% usage rate up to 21%. So another really big spike, and
Adrenaline is broken though.
Surprising why. Look at the list of things that this single perk does for a survivor.
Adrenaline is insane.
I don't have any issue with Adrenaline itself. It's an endgame perk, it's a wager, and I don't have any direct problem with the perk staying exactly how it is. However, what I would actually do is buff...
So you have a problem... You have a problem with DH and windows of opportunity, but you don't have a problem with Adrenaline? What? I thought he was gonna fucking get all pissy about adrenaline, and I'd be like, yes, slay, brother. But then he's like, yeah, adrenaline should remain this. What? Adrenaline wins games single-handedly for most people. Adrenaline is completely broken. What the fuck? No. Adrenaline is a problem.
This is a wesker perk that inflicts.
He's like, yeah, adrenaline shouldn't be nerfed, but how about we make this perk super good? How about we make a perk that just completely counters adrenaline? It's like, he doesn't want the perk to be nerfed, he just wants it to be gone. Because now we have a perk that completely counters adrenaline. Like, I see, like, adrenaline is a perk that only procs when the last gen is popped. Fair enough. But, if you're if you're a lower tier killer and you're chasing a survivor and you see that survivor might just be the only kill you're gonna get in the game, and then you're like, okay, fuck, I'm gonna have to commit to this guy, and then you commit to this guy, they finish the last gen, and then you're like, you're almost catching the survivor, he's already used a bunch of pallets, and then you're sitting there with your legion ass, chasing the survivor, and then last gen pops, and then you're like, yo, I'm gonna catch him, and then he's fully healed, and he's also across the map now because he bolted away from you, and now you get no kills. What did the survivor have to do? Nothing. He just gained a fucking health state and a sprint burst. But then at the same time, you're against me pressing E, like when you're swinging at me, bro. And then I gotta fucking mend. The perk doesn't work 80% of the fucking time, but that's a problem. But me gaining a full health state and crossing the whole map is not.
Injured survivors with the broken status effect when the exit gates are powered. So it's essentially a built-in counter to adrenaline, except it doesn't stop survivors from getting a sprint burst or healing from the dying state. Healing from the dying state is fine, but the exhaustion part isn't, so Terminus should now also inflict survivors with exhaustion to further counter adrenaline.
Yeah, whatever.
That seems like the most fair option, and hope is always available as an alternative. Up next is Boon's Circle of Healing at 20%,
Oh, that's all.
up from about 12% before the MSU.
You forgot to timestamp Circle of Healing. Circle of Healing is not a problem. I'm just gonna say this before everything he says. Circle of Healing is not a problem. The problem is self-healing. DBD wasn't balanced around survivors healing themselves. And Circle of Healing is only really strong if the survivors know how to abuse it. You know, drop chase, go heal up. Self-healing is a problem. But healing yourself on a Boon totem is so slow, and the killer kicking the Boon takes pretty much no time at all. So, I don't know.
Now, anytime there's a conversation about nerfing,
What's your opinion on Ruin?
People suggest that Shattered Hope
Hey,
should be
it's solid.
base kit. The problem with that is even though it's a fair nerf to Circle of Healing, it basically ruins every other Boon perk. So the way I see it, Circle of Healing has two futures. Either it keeps getting nerfed over and over again until the healing values are so low that self-care is actually a better option, or the Circle of Healing Boon totem exclusively can be destroyed by the killer. This gets around issues like on Ironworks of Misery, where survivors will keep the top story of the building booned the entire
I think
game,
that's fair
and the killer
enough.
doesn't have enough time to go up and snuff it, and it's a fair nerf to Circle of Healing without destroying every other boon. Also, it
I don't know
will
why they
encourage
nerfed
survivors to run boons without.
The thing with Boon perks is that it's super good to use when you're playing with three friends. It's a fun party perk. You know, so I don't think BHVR wants to touch these like casual Swift players. So that's why they're not touching this perk. Because that's who they appeal to the most, like casual party players. That's why I think they nerfed self-care over Circle of Healing. I don't think self-care needed a nerf. I never understood that. But I do agree that Circle of Healing is overtuned.
Circle of Healing, because if Circle of Healing is a part of the boon, it can now be destroyed. But if the boon is just shattered,
I do like this. I do like his suggestion that Circle of Healing exclusively, when you have it up, the killer snuffs it, it should break the totem. I agree.
step, then the killer would still need Shattered Hope to destroy it. As a result of this change though, Shattered Hope would need a buff where you could see the location of Boon totems once they were created. That would keep it used and further indirectly nerf Circle of Healing, which is really the only reason anyone would run Shattered Hope in the first place.
Yeah.
And at number 5,
I mean, fair enough. Shattered Hope, if you guys don't know, is a prick that whenever you snuff a Boonist killer and you have Shattered Hope, it breaks the totem. He's saying that Shattered Hope should also show you where the boons are. I don't know about that, to be honest, now that I think of it. Isn't that too easy? Just using a prick, using a prick that tells you where the boon is? I don't know. But that would be like the prick's only use, so I guess it's fair enough. Whatever.
is Prove Thyself with a 20%
Prove Thyself is dog shit.
Prove Thyself is an incredibly frustrating perk to
Prove
play against,
Thyself
so I'm
is
gonna
super
stick with
bad!
the rework idea from earlier this year. When a survivor dies, Prove Thyself activates for the remainder of the trial. For each generator left, the remaining survivors each
Prove
gain
Thyself
a
is super
10%
fucking
increase in
bad!
gen repair speed up to a maximum of 50%. Only one Prove Thyself can be active at a time. So not
What? When a survivor dies? What the fuck, bro? What? Okay. Prove Thyself is dog shit. You know what's better? Splitting up and doing gens. What the fuck? And now you want the perk to only activate when someone dies? The fuck? How? Okay, Choy, how do you see adrenaline as not a problem, but Prove Thyself is a big problem? What the fuck? Maybe that should be what adrenaline does. Adrenaline only gives you value if there's like one survivor dead. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think that's cool. Cause like I think like the most frustrating thing about adrenaline is when you're not gonna get any kills, and then you commit to one guy, so you got 1k, and then that guy has adrenaline, and then he escapes anyway. So adrenaline only giving you value if a survivor has died. That's fair enough. I don't understand. Like, this feels like a bait. Honest. He's like, adrenaline is fine, but Prove Thyself though. Prove Thyself should only activate if all survivors are dead. And then the next survivors that go into the trial that I just murdered everyone in, everyone has Prove Thyself. That should be what the break. What the fuck?
Not that you get confused with the 50% number and your head explodes.
He wants to make Prove Thyself a budget soul survivor.
The survivor disconnects when there's still 5 gens left at the very beginning of the game. All 3 remaining survivors get a 50% generator repair speed. Once a gen is completed, the effect goes down to 40%. 3 gens left, 30%. 2 gens, 20%. 1 gen left, 10%. Essentially, depending on how
this would make
the survivors lose a teammate, the more help they get, but only to the point that the pacing of the match isn't completely ruined for either side. The survivors get a lot of help towards the start, and only
I think I just understood what he meant. It's not that Prove Thyself only activates when the server's dead. He's offering a brand new effect to where if someone dies, the generators go faster, go a little bit faster. Yeah, I mean, DCing is a big problem for people that care about winning. So fair enough, I guess. Well, maybe, because Prove Thyself is already fucking dog shit useless, so, I mean, I guess having a perk that does something would be good.
Tiny bit towards the end, it seems fair.
Soul Survivor already does that?
Alive and not in an
Really?
eternal limbo of Borathon for everyone involved just because one player either died instantly or DC'd or something like that. The next 2 perks are Live, which is used about 18% of the time.
Let's see what he's
Sprint
talking.
Burst at
Let's see his
14%.
take on the
Neither
best
of these
exhaustion
perks were
perks in the game.
Top 10 slot earlier this year. Nothing drastic really needs to be done here, but upping the exhaustion cooldown from 40 seconds to 60 seconds would be a good place to start. It would make Vigil a little more appealing than it is now, which is cool, and 40 seconds is just really too short for such an insanely powerful survivor ability. Don't forget we live in a world where oppression still has an 80-second cooldown. Up next is Resilience at a 12%.
I mean, I agree with what he's talking about. But him being so harsh on DH and then these perks being fine is kind of hypocritical to me. It just shows that, like, how many subs does this guy have? 20,000? This video has 22,000 views. I mean, maybe people don't take him too seriously. as like not as much as I'm imagining at least. But this is the killer main problem right here. Them being so hypercritical over DH, and them being like, yo, DH should only activate once per trial, and then them going to the better exhaustion perks and being like, yeah, they're fine. You know, the reason you think they're fine is because you don't see them. You don't play against them. You should be thankful for that. It's like giving your child a gift, like an amazing gift. You give them an iPhone 10, and then they're like, "But I want an iPhone 11. I wanted an iPhone 11. Why did you give me an iPhone 10?" Ah! That's what killer means feel like. Honestly, I'm not even kidding. It's like, bro, be thankful that you're seeing DH and not sprint burst. Be happy about it.
A little more appealing than it is.
I know you want an iPhone 11, but iPhone 10 is also pretty good. You spoiled brats.
Its pick rate, but if I had to change something about it, I would make it to where equipping this perk would always inflict the survivor with hemorrhage anytime they were injured. That basically means they would no longer be able to 99% a heal for extra gen progress,
I like this.
and then full heal the second the killer shows up to chase them, which makes the perk serve its intended purpose, while also making perks like Overzealous a little bit more appealing.
I like
Again, though,
this.
the perk is really not an issue at the moment, in my opinion. Then we have Off the Record at about a 12% usage rate, and the crazy thing is that it used to be at 0.27%. It was one of the most worthless perks in the entire game.
True.
Now, the new Off the Record does need a few small changes, though, as it
No,
is
it doesn't.
a bit problematic for both sides.
It is not.
To start, survivors should no longer be silent with this perk for one major reason.
Shut the fuck up.
Survivors who don't have Off the Record are not silent, and because of that, killers know when they can tunnel and when they can't.
What? What's the perk's purpose? It's to not be fucking tunneled. And then now I think he's gonna argue that because the killers can hear you, then they know that you don't have off the record, and then they can tunnel you. But making off the record not make you 100% silent is just a flat nerf for no reason. It's a perk that disencourages tunneling. So make it better, not worse.
Biggest aspects of the old decisive strike was that killers were scared to sink time into chasing a survivor who might have invulnerability.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's talking about.
Decisive strike and survivors who didn't have it. So in a weird way, the perk would be more anti-tunnel if survivors weren't silent. However, to combat survivors using off the record to body block, survivors with off the record, base kit BT, or endurance.
Just make everyone quiet off the hook then. Make everyone as a base kit mechanic when you have the endurance status effect from the hook and the speed boost, you're quiet. And then if the killer commits to chasing you, and then he starts, because if he commits to chasing you right after you get unhooked, he's already committing time to you, right? And so you starting moaning after is whatever, because they've already committed to you. So how about that? Like, what the fuck is this? Survivors are no longer silent because the killer now knows that you don't have off the record, and that's an issue? No. Just buff it. Make it better. Survivors would no longer have collision with the killer while active?
No longer have collision with the killer. The killer could still hit them if they wanted to. It's just that if the killer doesn't want to hit them, they can now walk through them like a demanifested Sadako. Keep in mind, if a killer isn't tunneling, but a survivor uses...
If a survivor uses the off the record to body block the killer, then the killer just tunnels him. I think everyone agrees that if a survivor is using the endurance to body block you from going after another survivor, that survivor deserves to be tunneled. What the fuck?
Uses off the record to body block for another teammate, they are basically encouraging the killer to tunnel at that point.
This video is just about nerfing every viable survivor perk? No, I think videos like these are important. Like, YouTubers expressing their opinions on perks. The problem with this video specifically is that it feels very... It's just... he has such bad takes on most perks. It's simple as that. He just has terrible takes.
Overall. In the very last spot, we have Kindred, used 11% of the time.
And Kindred should be base kit. That's enough for me. I'm not gonna watch that anymore. Great video by Choy. Though I disagree with most of what he said about most of the perks he talked about. But yeah, it was great discussion. I hope no one listens to his dead hard changed opinion. thingies. That was terrible. And him not seeing adrenaline as a problem, but then seeing prove thyself as a problem is okay. Whatever. Let's play Dead by Daylight. How about that, guys?